All right, hello Zoomcasters. It's Tuesday night, Tuesday, April 20th, 12th to be specific, and it's time for another USA Hockey Officiating Program Zoomcast. For those of you who don't know me, I'm VJ Ringrose, manager of the USA Hockey Officiating Education Program, and I'll be your Zoomcaster master for this evening, where we do episode 58, which is another You Make the Call episode, one of our cult favorites that brings people back, where we present video clips to our participants and then present them with a viewer poll where they actually get to make their call with what they see within the video. And then we'll actually unpack the videos one by one with our elite panelists that we have here and talk about, discuss what goes on in the clip and what the appropriate USA Hockey playing rule to apply and what the proper penalty is. Just as I mentioned with our panelists, just to introduce who's joining us, start with Nick Zaglifa. Nick Zaglifa joins us from Charlestown, West Virginia, USA Hockey official for 30 plus years. Where he now serves both on the ice. He still works games, but at the same time, he's moved more into the administrative role now, where he serves as the Maryland State Supervisor official out there. Also a 2021 Advanced Officiating Symposium presenter, fan favorite out there. He gave a great lecture and a great presentation out there. And also serves on our Seminar Instructors Training Program staff as an instructor there as well. So very dedicated USA Hockey official. We're really happy to have him on this Zoomcast. Also joining us is Mackenzie Welter. Mackenzie joins us from Central New York, or Rome, New York, I believe, to be more specific. She can correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not familiar with where Rome is, it's roughly in the Syracuse area. USA Hockey official for 15 years. Moved on, came up through all of our camps, our elite camps, our summer camps and all that. And it's worked as a real great springboard for her as she's moved on to bigger and better things. She works in the NCAA Division I level. On the women's side, she worked the 2018 Frozen Four, as well as having a really successful career from there, but also on the IIHF side, where she serves as an IIHF referee, most recently working the 2021 Women's World Championships up in Calgary, Alberta. Also as the New York District Female Development Coordinator. So serves also on the volunteer administrative side, helping out the district staff out there in New York District with identifying and helping female officials for development so they can move on those same opportunities that she's been presented with by USA Hockey. Lastly, joining us is Dennis Larue. Dennis Larue comes from Spokane, Washington, USA Hockey official for about 40 plus years. His developmental years worked into a pretty good career on the ice, where he worked for 25 plus years as an NHL referee, working over 1,200 games, including one Stanley Cup final. And then also, most notably, to the best of our knowledge, the only official within USA Hockey to work 4 Olympics. So on the IIHF level, he actually worked 4 Olympic games. And then if that wasn't punishment enough for him on the ice, when he retired, he actually moved into an administrative role, not on the officiating side, but he's actually the president of the Spokane Junior Chiefs Youth Hockey Association. So he's actually a president of the Youth Hockey Association out there in Spokane, Washington, giving back to the game in a different sense. But I'm sure he works very, very hard with both the coaching and playing side as well as the officiating side to make the game as positive and the best that it can be out there in Spokane, Washington. Just a reminder for all of you, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them into our chat feature or our Q&A feature. We'll do our best to address those questions as they come up. Usually when we do these things, we usually start off with a poll that's related to the topic, and it's just kind of a teaser just to kind of get an idea where our participants' heads are at with regards to the upcoming topic. But we're going to do plenty of polling as we go through these video clips, so we'll get right on to the video clips. So start with sharing our screen here. And you should be able to see that now. And we'll watch clip 1. Okay, get back to our poll. And the first poll is launched. Make your call. Options are minor penalty and disallow the goal, major plus game misconduct penalty and disallow the goal, minor penalty and allow the goal, or major plus game misconduct penalties and allow the goal. And we'll give you about 15 to 20 seconds to ring in your response. And then we'll kick it over to our panelists to break down this clip. Looks like we're just about there. Give about another 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, that's about time. So pencils down, we'll share the results. You see the overwhelming majority, just over half, say minor penalty plus disallow the goal. A few of you said minor penalty and allow the goal. And fringe minority amongst you said major plus game misconduct penalty and either disallow the goal or allow the goal. And that was only one or two of you within that group. So we'll stop the share and we'll relaunch this screen share and clip. And we'll start with Mac. Mac, what's your take on this video clip?
Ugly. If I had to give it one word, it's ugly. So as BJ plays this over, we're really going to look at the contact here by that white defenseman right in front of the net. So there may have been some contact there from that blue forward right around the crease. You know, kind of negligent on the play, doesn't really impact anything. But if you notice that defenseman, I think it's number 9, if I can tell from the grandstand view I have here, that defenseman, he just cross-checks the guy in blue right to the head. It's not a hockey play. That's a dangerous action in USA hockey. It's reckless, you know, could cause injury here, but that play on that white defenseman, that's a major game misconduct for USA hockey. That's a type of play we cannot have happening in our leagues. So I'm going to have to disagree with this poll here. And I'm going to go with a major game misconduct for the cross check or the head contact, depending on which way you want to go there. The goal is awarded in this case. The blue forward has no impact on the goalie to make that save. There's no goaltender interference there. So good goal. And we're going 5-on-4 with a major game misconduct.
Thanks, Mac. Anything to add, Nick?
The only thing I would, not at all. The only thing I would like to see, again, if this were a USA hockey game, is the officials is a go up against the boards right there. Probably not the best position. You know, to obviously he sees it all. He sees it all, which is great. But generally, we like to see that referee on that goal line or as close to that home base as possible, so he gets the best view, you know, of not only the puck crossing the line, but also that cross check. But totally agree with Mackenzie's assertion there. Ugly. I can't think of a better word.
You bring up a really good point, Nick, and I'll kick it to Denny. I mean, Denny, you've had a wealth of experience on the ice, not only with the USA hockey level, but obviously at the upper levels as well. You certainly, as a referee, you know, basically, can you kind of put into a little bit of an idea into the heads of our participants? How close is too close? I mean, certainly I agree with Nick that maybe the referee is a little too far back, particularly with the sight line of the goal line. If there's a close play and that puck just kind of squeaks across the goal line, you know, is there a danger in getting too close to that play, Denny?
Well, there is, and that's a great point too. First of all, Mackenzie, that was, you know, a terrific analysis of that play. And the problem with getting too close is the closer you get and the more difficult it is to have any type of an angle. One of the things we really work on, both with USA Hockey and as officials at whatever level, is the closer you get to the net, excuse me, you want to make sure that you, excuse me, you don't have so much puck focus as you have puck awareness. And the closer you get to the net, the more you become puck focused, because that's what you're working, you know, to find out where the puck is, find out if it's frozen, if it's across the goal line, et cetera, et cetera. So depending upon where you're working and, you know, what the different options are, and whether you're in a 2-man or 4-man or 3-man or whatever the setup is for the officiating for that game. If you're the low guy and you don't have the benefit of a high guy, the closer you get, the more problematic that can be, because again, you're becoming more puck focused, and you may be missing this. And I'm not sure what the penalty that was called on the play was, but Mackenzie got it spot on. This is not a hockey play. It's cross checked right to the player's neck or head. It's difficult to tell there. But you'd want to make sure and see that, because that's the most important part of this whole event here is that not only does the puck go in the net, which is obviously critically important, but we can't allow for a player to get cross-checked the side of the head and not see it. So that's the only thing I would offer there is when you be aware that the closer that you do get to the net, the more puck focused you tend to become, and just try to, balance that with the need to be puck aware as well, and player focused or game focused as opposed to puck focused.
Excellent. Thanks, Denny. All great points by everyone. Thank you so much. Let's move on to clip number 2. It's one that really kind of judges your awareness. We'll launch the poll on that one. Okay. Poll is launched. What is your call? Minor penalty to Team Blue, no penalty, minor 10 penalty to Team White, or minor penalties to both Team Blue and Team White? If you're feeling cheated that I didn't show you a slow motion replay, there's a reason for that. We will get to those, but they really do kind of spotlight and highlight what went on in that clip. This was a really interesting clip that we captured out of the under-18s back in April. Give yourselves about another 5 to 10 seconds to ring in your answers. Yeah, this one's really curious. All right, pencils down. We'll share the results. Minor penalty to Team Blue. Looks like about 25% of you said minor penalty to Team Blue. The number one answer, about half of you said minor penalty to Team White. And then about 2 of you said no penalties at all, and 2 of you said minor penalties to both Team Blue and Team White. So let's see if who's correct on this one. So stop the share and get the screen share going again. And we'll start with Nick. Nick, what's your take on this one?
All right, so we have it looks like the little stick check there, and the 7 hand-eye coordination deserves an award right there. That is a good play there to catch the stick without batting an eye. All right, so we have Blue clearly knocks the stick out. Again, is there a play on the puck? Nope. So I definitely see a potential for a minor penalty there. But then as we go forward after that play, all right, and then you'll see that trip right there on White. Okay, where he sticks out his leg and takes out both feet. So I have no issue at all with calling minors on both teams here. Again, great catch, and I'd even say that I give that guy a compliment there. But his teammate clearly took out the leg. The one thing I was struggling with, I can't tell if you notice the referee is looking to his right, and it doesn't appear he caught the trip, because he's looking to his right. And I think if Dennis, if I can steal your slogan there, I think that was a puck focus situation, because the only thing in that general area was the puck. And you had a whole bunch of players right in front of him, and he was looking at the puck instead of the players.
Interesting point, Nick. And then Mac, you've worked plenty of games, obviously at the NCAA level in the 4 official system with a back referee. Now, it's basically, this is one where the R2 up high really does have to step up. And in some cases, might have to make both calls. There's a chance that referee down low just doesn't catch that flipperoo there high up in the high slot area, and possibly even down low, because, as Denny said, the R1's puck focus. Do you agree, Matt?
100%, yeah. And honestly, if you, in your pregame conversations, which you'd always have as a crew before you step out on the ice, you want to talk about those sight lines as those R1s and R2s, or even in the 2 official system. When you've got a partner down low in the corner and one that's up high, You know, you really want to talk about, okay, you know, if the puck's over here, kind of where are you looking? Where can I support you as the R2? And that initial interference there with the stick flying in the air and the great softball or baseball catch, which I could never do as a player, but you know, that's the time when, as the R2, you're there to support, like you said, BJ, because R1's probably looking through those 2 or 3 white players, that blue player coming in front of the net. You know, he's not watching what's happening on the far side at the top of the circles. That's where your partner's going to pick that up for you. And the same thing down low, where like right here, the blue is curling down the boards in the corner. He's not watching the front of the net. That's your job as your partner. And that's why when we stress so much in USA Hockey about working together as a team, it doesn't matter who makes the call as long as we get the call right. And so that teamwork is huge here in this situation.
Thanks, Mac. And just kind of going down this, I'll go to Denny now, and going down this road of talking about teamwork and support. You were one, I think you were the one that basically proposed the original idea of hope versus courage out there as a referee. And that kind of plays into the 2 official system, I think, sometimes, where you're supporting a partner out there where, you know, you see sort of what you see, right? You see what you see, but you think your partner has it, and why didn't they call it? And should I call it? And should I call it over my partner? You know, Denny, where does hope versus courage kind of play a role in that?
Well, it's a simple matter of knowing, you know, did you see it or did you not see it? Because the one thing that we don't need or want ever is guessing. But if you see something and, you know, you need to have the courage to call it and not, you know, hope that somebody else takes on the heavy load of, you know, in this situation, it's not that heavy a load, I guess, because it's a minor penalty, but notwithstanding, the whole idea is that you have to have the courage to call the penalties that need to be called. You have to call the right penalties, and you have to have the courage to call them in front of your partner at times when you see something that for whatever reason they missed. And so you can't, it's a team game, as Mackenzie said, and you've got your team out there where if there's something that happens, they're not going to blame you or him or her at the end of the day. They're going to blame your team for having a bad game or missing a call that was important in the game or anything like that. So it's always important, again, first and foremost, not to guess. That's why we work hard to be in position to make the calls that we are supposed to make. And then second of all, to have the courage to stand up to make that call when it's necessary and when it's something that you're sure that you've seen accurately. You know, be there to support, be there to make that call for your partner.
Great, Denny, thanks. One question in the chat, someone asked about a possible slew foot on this play here by the white defenseman. We'll play it again in slow motion. Now, would anyone call a slew foot here? Would anyone agree that this is a slew foot, or is this just your generic minor penalty for tripping?
I personally think that it's really good that somebody thought that that was potentially a slew foot, because to me, it's a borderline slew foot trip. You know, depending upon a lot of variables, this may very well be a slew foot. It's close enough that I wouldn't have a problem with someone calling it that. At the same point in time, you know, I'm not sure it's one of those. In fact, I think it's probably as much a slew foot as anything. The player's unsuspecting. The white player takes his legs out with his leg in a kicking motion. And I think that's actually a really keen observation on whoever's part that was, because I think you could make a decent argument for this being slew footing.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to clip 3.
Good work, whoever put that in.
Just a reminder to our panelists, this is clip 4 in your notes. All right, now that we've thoroughly had our stomachs turned by that clip, we'll launch the poll. Okay, penalty options in the poll. Minor penalty to Team White, major plus game misconduct penalties to Team White, match penalty to Team White, or no penalty. Okay, answers are rolling in. Give about another 5 seconds here. And with that, we'll wrap up the poll and share the results. No real surprise there that 63% of you said a major plus game misconduct penalty to Team White there. Some of you thought it was a minor penalty to Team White. And at least one of you said no penalty. And well, don't really know. I can't quite figure out what the thinking thought process was there. But we'll start with Denny on this clip. So we watch screen share and take a look at this clip again.
Well, every one of you has been elevated that voted major in game, because that's what I would have called. So you've been elevated to, potential NHLer. Seriously, this is the kind of play, number one, it's extremely dangerous in our game. This has extraordinary potential for a serious injury to a player. You notice the player is on the ice. I don't know whatever happened to him, but more importantly, not recognizing this for what it is and calling it a major in a game is going to make the rest of your game beyond difficult. And it's going to be something that, again, was totally within your control to recognize, properly assess. You can never help what players do to each other, so you can't be responsible for that. But when you don't rise up and do what it is that you're supposed to do, then everyone gets frustrated with the way that you're officiating the hockey game. And that's where games don't necessarily get out of control because of what players are doing. A lot of times they'll get out of control because of what officials are doing or not doing, and more likely than not, what they're not doing. So in a situation like this, by not identifying accurately and calling this a major in a game misconduct at a minimum, this could potentially be a match penalty even, but by not calling this a major in a game misconduct, you are chasing the rest of that game for however long it is. We don't have the benefit of a time clock or score or anything else up here. But if this is even in the first period, you're just going to have an extremely long night, because this is the kind of play that gets everybody upset and gets everyone tipped over about what's gone on here. So no question he extends the knee. No question there's knee-on-knee contact. And the correct penalty for this is a major penalty in a game misconduct. And you see it best at that angle, actually. The other one, you couldn't necessarily see knee on knee, although you could certainly surmise it. But the back camera angle from the end zone looking out shows clearly that it's a knee on knee contact penalty.
Thanks, Denny. Mac, you as a referee, setting a standard, keeping a standard, but even also sending a message to teams. There's a message to be sent with stepping up and calling a major penalty or a match penalty here, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we call this a minor penalty, especially if it's early in the game, like Dennis was just saying, we're going to have a long night here. This is such a reckless play. That player in white, he's clearly beat by the puck. He's not making an attempt on that puck. It's already behind him. He's looking just to take out that blue player. That's his only intent here. So as officials or as referees, we've really got to make sure that we set that standard, set that tone that, look, this is not tolerable here. And that's where that major in that game misconduct penalty comes in that Dennis talked about. And one thing I do want to point out, this is obviously in a 4 official system, and the referee had that back referee, the one that's skating back into the neutral zone, he had great sight lines on this. But in the event that he didn't, he's got 2 linesmen that probably had a really good look at this play. So he knows it's a penalty. Maybe he didn't see the exact knee on knee, but that ref's definitely gonna have his arm in the air. When he blows his whistle, he's gonna wanna talk to his linesman and make sure that we get this call right, because this is a huge call in the game.
Really excellent point, Mac, and actually spotlight what I mentioned to Nick to bring him into the conversation is, as a linesman, Nick, what's the process here? Let's say you're working this game and it's a 1 referee, 2 linesman system. You're on that blue line or on the far side of the blue line. You see this play, and for whatever reason, the referee misses it. What's going through your head as a linesman? What's your process? What do you need to do?
Right. So the first thing you have a good view. I agree that I think the liney across the blue line would have a good view of it. And so what you have to do is you can't go up to the referee and say, well, I think, because especially if the referee was screened or wasn't sure, you have to go to that referee with a certain level of confidence, as if you were officiating, if you were the referee, you were wearing the bands, and say, yes, that was a major in a game. It was knee on knee, and he led with the knee. I will tell you, when I first saw the clip for the first time in normal speed, it's funny. My eyes gave the benefit of the doubt that it might have been hip, but a hip check looking at all the clues, a hip check is not going to cause that player to flip around like that. It is the momentum of the knee that elevated his opponent up in the air. So just looking at all of the clues together to make that determination on that play, and so on, because a hip check would not cause the spin and rotation of his opponent right there.
Really, really good point, Nick.
And then the other thing too is, someone in the chat, I said, yeah, it's a very dangerous play. It's also dangerous for our suspect. All right. I've seen players initiate the knee contact and end up getting hurt themselves, so it's dangerous on both fronts.
And just to go back briefly to what Denny and Max said about it, as far as your penalty standard and calling a match or a major penalty there, it points me back to what I heard Bob Cunningham say. Bob Cunningham was one of our district refereeing chiefs of the Central District formerly. And what he would say in the locker room to an official who called a minor penalty there: if that's not a major, I'm really scared to think of what is in your game. If that's not in your standard, if that's not a major penalty, I'm really, really afraid to see what you think a major penalty is. So moving on, we'll move on to clip 5. As you notice, we skipped over clip 4. That's an editing error on my part, but move on to clip 5 here. One more time. Okay, launch our poll.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Max is going to say ugly again.
This is worse than ugly.
That's right.
Worse. Did you see me cringe? Oh.
Spoiler.
Well, I list the penalty options off there, but the panelists seem to be given the correct answer. So we're not even bothered.
I don't have a good poker face, BJ. Sorry. Saw the clip and my face went, oh.
This poll is more of an ordeal than anything at this point. With that, we'll share our results from the poll. Good news is pretty much all of you are pretty much in the right mindset on this one. It's pretty much split 50-50. Half of you said in major plus game misconduct to Team Black. The other half of you said a match penalty. So we'll stop the share and go back and break down this clip. We'll start with Nick on this one. Nick, what are your thoughts here?
You're right. So when you take a look at it, obviously that there's no chance that he's gonna outrace the puck. He knows he's gonna lose the battle. So in his mind, he's like, well, if I can't get access to that puck, I got to take out that opponent. I think that play was so close to someone calling 911. The angle, that the contact was in that magic line, that the 30 to 36 inches away from the boards, where your center of gravity goes up and over and completely defenseless, no time to get arms up to brace for impact or anything like that. That could have been a disaster, to that opponent. So I know we were sort of joking around, but yeah, this penalty is really not a joking matter. So I think we we got to go match here, because again, the intent was to take the player out. He already surrendered puck possession. He knew he couldn't do it. So because we're dealing with reckless endangerment, I think we got to go match here.
Great, Nick. Anything to add, Mac?
That was a great explanation. Really great. I will tell you, I cringed when I saw that play. I don't know if anyone was watching my face. Don't watch my face, because when I'm not on the ice, the poker face just it goes. But yeah, the one thing I will say though is, so you have this big hit in a game, or this big play in a game, right? And obviously the white team, after watching their teammate get demolished here, their emotions are going to be high. They're going to want to come back, and they're going to want to retaliate against that dark team. So I like how this low referee, he kind of gets right over into that place where that hit just happened. And if you notice the linesman, especially the one that's closest to us here in the screen, notice how he really creeps in, anticipating that whistle is going to blow. And the linesman over on the far side in front of the bench, he's creeped in down almost to the top of the circles. So we have really good presence as a team here in stripes to try to eliminate any further contact or penalty situation or anything that could really make this more volatile than what it is. So I want to give hats off to that crew on the ice here for that physical presence in this play.
You make a really good point, Mac. And it's true. Like, the linesmen know what's coming. And that's the difference between good linesmen and great linesmen. They can anticipate. They see a hit like that. They know exactly what's coming, and they're all dialed in on that one player who executed that body check. They want to get to that person as quickly as possible, because they know that's where the hot spot's going to be. They know that's where they're going to have to separate players. So really, really good response here by the linesmen as they step up. Denny, again, falling back on your long career on the ice, there are hits that lead to boards. There are hits that lead to charges and things like that. I've always kind of thought and said that, charges do come out of competitive play. Boards come out of competitive play. You're competing for a 50-50 puck, or you're going to lay a body check on a player and lay a competitive move on it, but somehow it goes south. But this hit just doesn't seem to fit that bill. Would you agree, Denny?
100%. Two things here that I wanted to mention. First of all, there's two things we're charged with as officials, and the first one is keeping the game fair. The second one is keeping the game safe, and those may not be in particular order they need to be in. It's probably more about the safety aspect first and then fair. But this is an incident where the hit happens way too high. It's got all kinds of bad problems associated with it, and from a player safety standpoint, this has got to be something that's called, and you guys got it right. Even the debate about the match or 5 we can have, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still in 5 minutes. A recognition that this is a terribly violent play doesn't need to happen, and it's outside of the bounds of the rules. And it comes then to our responsibility to make sure the game is safe for players to play in. And again, you can't stop this player from doing what he does. But if you don't recognize it and don't deal with it, then the problem is going to land in your lap instead of in the player's lap, who's being the responsible party for it.
Great. Thanks, Denny. We'll move on to clip number 6. I apologize here. Generally, I take the sound out of all of my clips just because sometimes it can be a little distraction. Sometimes the noise can be a little irritating, and sometimes commentators can be just flat out annoying. So I usually edit all that kind of stuff out. So just to kind of bring you guys up to speed here, this linesman does in fact call offsides here. But we're not so much worried about what her call is. We're more interested in what your call is. So we're going to launch the poll and see what you have here on this particular play. So really, really simple poll, should not take very long. What's your call? Offsides or not offsides? Okay, that didn't take terribly long. And we'll share the results there, and overwhelming, the majority of you said offsides. So let's take another look and see what, we'll start with Nick on this one. Nick, what do you got on this play here?
All right, so I'm looking for the daylight where it comes out. And I'll be honest with you, I watched this several times, but I think right there, the right skate of that blue player had contact with the blue line when the puck crossed the line. I know it's hard. Okay, hard to see, but a little bit more, almost. Woo! Yeah, I think I need like 2 frames after that. But when I was first watching, I really thought we had it onside, because I believe that that there was still skate contact when the puck crossed that determining edge. And in this particular case, that determining edge is on the left, right? You know, because the blue line is part of the zone the puck is in. But it was darn close. But for sure, the linesman thought for sure we have an offside. But if you see, we have the delay up, right? And see right there. Okay. But now that the attacking team is still going after the puck, it'd be one thing if the attacking player, if we were playing tag up, you know, curls around to tag up, that's fine. But because blue honestly thinks we have it's a clean play, we have to shut it down. If you think it's offside in your head, it's definitely offside. You have to shut it down to prevent any unnecessary contact.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Well, I should just move on to the next clip just for the sake of keeping things rolling here. I'm actually going to show you the slightly slow motion version too. Okay, launch the poll there. Another real simple one. Onsides or not offsides or not offsides? Okay, share the results there. And we're about 50-50 on that one. Half you say onsides, half you say offsides. The reality of it is this is all kind of pointless busy work on my end, because we're really not going to discuss the call here, because due to the quality of the video itself isn't really all that good. It's kind of hard. But the key thing is, as you guys noted, we had a really close, you know, basically leaving the zone and entering the zone between these two team white players. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the linesmen themselves and getting into support of one another and positioning and things like that. So we'll start with Denny here. What are your thoughts with the linesman positioning and how they kind of executed this blue line coverage?
So that's exactly the point here. The question of whether it's onside or offside is secondary to this. This is why it's so important, why every second of every game you have to be focused, and it's so hard to do. And it particularly, you know, as you're younger or working into the games and everything else, but there is never a second you can take off in a hockey game if you're officiating it, because you don't know when something is going to happen. So here's an example of a play, and it looks like, well, it's in the USHL. I can see that just from the scoreboard. So here's some officials that are pretty experienced. They should know that. So the first thing that happens is the forward linesman goes deep to make this icing call before the play reverses to come out. The back linesman is way too late. He needs to recognize that when his arm goes up. This is icing. It's potentially a close play down at the far goal line. his partner has to then go all the way down there, and there could potentially be a play at the blue line. And that's where the mechanics of this is problematic. The back linesman, the front linesman does exactly what he's supposed to do. He goes down, makes the appropriate call. The back linesman needs to do, you just got to be more hustling to get up to that line to be closer to make this play, because as it develops, you'll see where the puck is kept in the zone. It's a crowd of people. There's a crowd of people right there at that line as they come back across it. It wasn't kept in the zone. As they come back across it, I should say. You know, he's not in the best position to look down that line, but he can't rely on his partner for anything there because he's not in position either. So the challenge here is to, again, this is just a harder work issue, quite honestly. And there's not much more to it. You've both got to always be working as hard as you possibly can to get in the position you need to be, to make your own line calls, number one, but to be able to support your partner, number two, in case he or she is in a spot where it's not, you know, not in a good spot.
Thanks, Danny. Going over to Mac, anything to add here? And maybe even some, does awareness play a little bit of a factor here too? Basically being aware of the bigger picture, positioning of players away from the puck and things like that. Does it play a role a little bit in this breakdown?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can tell that back linesman, he was caught sleeping a little bit, like Dennis was talking about there. You know, one of the things that we talk about in our fundamental positioning in USA hockey, whether it's the 2 official system, or in this case, the 4 official system, where you have those 2 linesmen, that just because of the back linesman, you put your arm in the air to initiate icing, doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. So we can never stop skating until that play is all the way done and we know what's happening next. But, you know, this, as Dennis said, this back linesman, he got a little lazy, you know, became kind of puck focused and wasn't looking at the players that were back, you know, across on the other side of the boards in the neutral zone. You know, he wasn't on his toes. He wasn't anticipating. And I think part of that anticipation came because he wasn't aware, really thinking about that next step, trying to be proactive, you know, and thinking about, okay, where could that next big play potentially be? And honestly, he's kind of caught in no man's land right now as a linesman. He's not on either line, so he really can't make a call because he's not in the right position.
Excellent. Thanks, Mac. And you hit the nail on the head with a point that a former supervisor gave to me when I was on the ice. It's really about, you know, being a linesman out there. It really boils down to your positioning, boils down to where's your next call going to be? Where's the next big call going to be? Where do you have to be to make the next big call? And it really is, you know, focusing on the positioning of the puck, but also sometimes focusing on the positioning of the players. And I see in this particular play where the puck gets dumped out, it's pretty darn obvious who's going to get to that puck first, unless it happens to bump over that Team Red player's stick there. I'm about 95 to 99% sure that Team Red player is going to get it there. You know, the puck's going off back into that attacking zone, or maybe he might hold on to it, but the next big play is going to be there at that attacking blue line. And because a little bit of a mental lapse here on this L2 in the back, not reading that play correctly, he actually takes about 2 or 3 steps in the wrong direction and completely costs him the opportunity to take 2 or 3 steps to the left and be in the proper position near that blue line to possibly make that call for his partner. So he kind of leaves his partner out, hanging out to dry here, where that partner now has to hustle up and now make a really, really, really tight offside call from a good 10 to 15 feet off the line. So better awareness here and taking in the bigger picture of the play, and then covering, stepping up for your partner when your partner needs that level of coverage. That will move on to the next clip. Okay, we'll launch our poll on that one. Okay, minor penalty for interference to Team Red, major plus misconduct penalties for charging to Team Red, major plus game misconduct penalties for charging to Team Red, or no penalty. I'll give you guys about another, you guys responding pretty quickly. Give you guys maybe another 5-10 seconds tops. Okay, we'll wrap up the poll, share the results. 80% of you said minor penalty for interference to Team Red, and a fringe minority, a couple of you said either a major plus game misconduct penalty or no penalty at all. So we'll throw this one over to Mac. Mac, what do you have here? What are your thoughts?
Thanks, BJ. I was hoping it was coming to me. This is like a referee's dream right here, right? You see an attacking player who's driving hard from the outside. You know that they want the puck to go to the front of the net. So as a ref, I'm on edge. I'm ready. What's going to happen? Is he going to drive into the crease? Is he going to shoot it? Do I got to be there for the goal? Is he going to try the wrap around, right? Something's going to happen at the net. You know, that's where it's going. So in this situation, you've got that red player driving outside. Okay. He's right there. The ref's in a pretty good spot. I think he's got some great positioning. You know, he's able to anticipate something that could happen around that net. But if you notice, red does not make an attempt to stop before he gets to that crease. Yes, there is some contact there with the yellow defenseman, but the yellow defenseman isn't pushing him into his own goalie. So, you know, here he's driving hard. The red player doesn't put the brakes on and he runs the goalie over. Is it reckless? No. You know, is it a dangerous play? No. But is it a situation where red's not fully in control? Absolutely. So in this situation, I 100% agree with our poll out there that this is a minor penalty for interference.
Thanks, Mac. All really, really good points, although I would kind of question the fact that if you think goalkeeper contact is a dream in your game, I kind of question the quality of your games. But that being said, I'll pass it to Denny. Odds are, all of us, I think, are experienced enough. I'm sure a lot of our participants are experienced enough that you know Team Yellow is going to be barking for a charge. You know they're going to want something heavier. They're not going to necessarily be satisfied with just a minor penalty for interference. You know, you skating over to that team bench, is there anything that you like? What's going through your head as you approach that Team Yellow bench? You know they're going to want the major penalty or the charge, the 2 and 10. How do you explain that to that team?
Well, I think again, Mackenzie's answer was really good, and basically it's if that's going to be your standard all night, then you're going to have multiple major penalties because this player comes wide. He recognizes that he's going to be, you know, potentially going into the goal. He doesn't continue to barrel through it. He doesn't stop hard enough to try not to. And then there's the mitigating factor of the yellow defenseman who's not giving him any place else to go. He doesn't have to. But there is contact between the yellow player and the red player that contributes to the red player going into the goal. It doesn't take away the red player's responsibility, but the explanation I would use and give is, you know, your player has some responsibility for helping this player, preventing him from stopping or helping him go into your goaltender. Not enough that it's no penalty, but enough that I would have a very difficult time identifying this as a major penalty in a game misconduct. And then secondly, again, that's the standard that you're establishing. You always have to be conscious in your game of what you're establishing, when you're establishing it, and whether you can maintain it for the rest of that particular game. So in a case like this, where you have a goaltender interference penalty, which again, I think is the correct call, if you upgrade this to a major, now essentially every time there's any contact with the goaltender, both sides are going to be expecting you to call a major in a game misconduct. You're not going to be able to go backwards from having done that. You're only, you know, I mean, if you call a minor here, you have an opportunity to raise that in the future at some different act to a more severe penalty if it's a more severe action. But if you call this a severe action now, anything else that happens, you're going to have to explain why there's a difference there. I'm not sure that made sense the way I explained it, but again, I think there's some responsibility on the yellow players team, the yellow players part. And, you know, this player is not egregiously and violently attempting to run over the goaltender, which would be a major penalty, of course.
I think you summarized it really well, Danny. The thing that stood out most to me as I was going through this, and you know, for the panel, all the participants, basically, when I put these clips, I select these clips. I also bounce it off a few district RICs and others just to kind of calibrate my own mindset of making sure my head's on straight with what the proper call should be in the USA Hockey context. The thing that stood out for me here is just the fact that, you know, basically from the tops of the circles, this red player is coasting.
Mhm.
This is not a
Yep.
drive hard to the net play, not driving hard to force the puck in and cutting really, really hard. He essentially is coasting from the tops of the circles into the play. And I think that really is kind of a mitigating factor, between a really, really reckless drive to the net where you really just kind of just steamroll the goaltender over, where now all of a sudden we really need to step up and call a 2-minute, either 2 and 10 for charge or possibly a 5 in a game for charge, depending on how bad the contact is. So
I think it's interesting how both Dennis and Mac mentioned in earlier clips, like if you don't call this major, you're in for a long night. That's a two-way street, so if you call that major for the charge here, you'll be in for a long night as well for the opposite reason, but still.
long night filled with dreams with goalkeeper contact, which Mac loves. So,
And as a former goaltender, I'm hurt.
we'll move on to the next clip. All right. Launch the poll on that one. All right, what's your call? Minor penalty for interference to Team Blue, minor plus misconduct penalties for charging to Team Blue, minor plus major plus game misconduct penalties for charging to Team Blue, or no penalty. Okay, we'll end the poll right there and share our results. A little bit more of a split one again. 40% of you said minor penalty for interference to Team Blue, and 60% of you, the overwhelming majority, said no penalty there. So we'll stop the share and we'll go back to watch this again. We'll start with Nick. Nick, what are your thoughts on this clip here?
This is an excellent example of game management. How are we going to handle this situation? The other thing too to keep in mind, I think one would argue that calls or interpretations of this play in the opening period versus late in the third period of a tie game, or late in the third period with a 5-goal lead. It's what do you want the end result to be. So I think here, if you haven't made your first call of the game, that definitive, this is how it's going to go today, boys and girls. If you haven't made that call yet, I'm not sure this is the one that would rise to that level. Do we have, I do think that the attacking player, I see snow, I see an attempt to stop and hit the brakes to minimize contact with the goalie. I'm not too thrilled that my brother in pads would whack the guy like that just to give him a how you do. Maybe a discussion with the players, say, guys, let's knock it off, or whatever the case may be. But if it's a 5-0 game and it's only going to get uglier, okay, now we can, that's a different perspective on how to handle it. But in this situation, this is all game management and how the game is going to continue from there.
Excellent point, Nick. Anything to follow up with, Mac?
I 100% agree. I think the last clip that we saw that had that goaltender interference, that was a pretty black and white play. This is a lot more gray. I agree with what Nick said. I think that Blue tried to put the brakes on him, and you can see the snow. In this case, the yellow goaltender, he's a little bit outside of his crease. There's nothing that stands out to me that says, yep, that's a penalty. So, first call of the game, I'm not making that. That to me is, I'm going to have a chat. I'm just going to say, hey, what is it, 21? Just watch out for the goalie there. And I'm at the next whistle, I'm going to talk to the goalie and say, hey, I saw the Blue bumped into you, but you can't be slashing him back. Just, kind of here's your warning, so to speak. So situations like this, again, I agree with Nick. It all depends on what's happening in your game. This is a game management play, to call it or not to call it.
Thanks, Mac. And Denny, going back to you again, talking with that team bench, there's a good possibility here that team yellow is going to be crying for the interference. Basically teams always want to protect their goaltenders. God forbid an attacking player makes a little bit of contact with their goaltenders. Is this type of contact, does it warrant a quick conversation with that team yellow bench just to kind of talk them off the ledge a little bit and then kind of calm the emotions, and maybe clarify the expectations, Denny?
Yeah, I don't, it could for sure. I think at a minimum, it requires a conversation with the goaltender to tell him that, listen, I saw the play, so I'm aware I wasn't sleeping through it. It didn't rise to the level of a penalty in my mind, and you don't have to get into all the specifics of it, but basically to acknowledge that you saw what happened, you let the goaltender retaliate with the slash of the stick. So at that point in time, you can kind of figure out that it's even. And I am going to be aware, however, that this already happened and that it's not going to be something that's habitual in this game tonight. I can promise you that. So I think it's really as important as anything to have that conversation with the goaltender as much as or more so than it is with the player, with the bench personnel, because the goalie is the guy that's going to have to play the rest of the game, and he's got to know that you're going to be protecting him if something happens. And you also get an opportunity to tell him, the retaliation isn't necessary. And I think delivering that message to the goaltender would be more useful, honestly, than perhaps going to the bench in that particular situation. Although the bench isn't a bad idea either, but I think if you deliver it to the goaltender and you see him sitting there nodding his head, okay, I got it, or whatever else have you, the bench gets that message secondarily, by virtue of the goaltender's body language and so on and so forth.
And I'll be honest, if this happens early in the game, as a referee, I don't want to have to go to the bench and explain this play. Like, what does that open? That opens up the doors for the next, 55 minutes or 50 minutes, however much more game time you have, where now the coach wants an explanation to every little thing. So I agree. I think, having the conversation with the goalie and getting the goalie to be like, yep, got it, is telling that bench, hey, they saw it. Okay, we're in a good spot. We're okay. This isn't something I need to call him over for. So.
Fair point, Mac. You might actually be bringing more trouble and more heat on yourself by going over that team bench and making yourself into a lightning rod unnecessarily. So very, very good point there, Mac. With that, as you noted, we are up to the top of the hour, which means we are out of time. Normally, this is the point where we'd share the upcoming schedule, but for those of you who keep track of the Zoomcast schedule on a daily basis on our website, this is the end of season 2. So now for some people, they like to play spring hockey, like to play summer hockey. They love to commit to a lifetime of hockey all year round. We in the officiating program believe in an off season. I certainly believe in an off season. So we're wrapping up our education program, the Zoomcast program, for the summer. And we should be back probably sometime, maybe September. We'll kick off season 3, and we'll certainly come back with some more You Make the Call episodes. Maybe do some more, rule book Q&A, where we kind of do some deep dives into rule interpretations and playing rules within the rule book and the spirit and intent of rules and how rules work within the rule book, and some other topics as we kind of come up with those. So with that being said, quick social media reminder, we do have our social media channels out there on Twitter and Instagram. Feel free to follow us and follow all the content that we throw out there, and the stuff that we retweet from some of our friends from the Officials Warehouse for Sports, as well as the main USA Hockey channel. Survey reminder to you all, once we wrap this thing up, you should get an email link to a SurveyMonkey survey to basically give your feedback. We always want your feedback with what you liked about this episode, what you thought about this episode could have been a little bit better, and of course that one question topic where you get to suggest a topic for one of these episodes. We're always looking for new ideas. And we always look for that kind of feedback from all of you. Thank you to you, our participants. It's the first time you've ever been on a USA Hockey Zoomcast. Welcome. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope to see you on future Zoomcasts in the future. But if you're one of our diehard regulars that have been watching us week in and week out and following us on all the episodes, we thank you so much for your support and commitment with over the course of the 58 episodes that we've done. With that said, I'll say thank you to our panelists, Dennis Larue, Nick Zaglifa, and Mackenzie Welter. Thank you so much for taking time out of your personal schedules, your busy schedules. It's been a long, grueling season. We're kind of here at the end here, but just asking you to give up one more of your evenings, and just even 1 hour of one of your evenings is kind of a tall ask, and we appreciate that. And we're really happy that you're willing to give up your time and then contribute to USA Hockey Officiating. With that, we'll wrap things up. I'm BJ Ringrose on behalf of the USA Hockey Officiating Program. Thank you for your dedication to USA Hockey.